Yes, I do. I think a lot of student culture, as indeed every other culture, revolves around alcohol. And I think part of the thing that you have to understand is that in many ways, in order to be accepted as a student, often may involve people having to drink whether they want to or not. I mean, and not very many students actually come into, get major problems with alcohol. There are a few, but not many. But still, it's well known that universities can potentially be quite an excessive drinking environment. Especially, I think, when you're in halls and the likes, we know that there's more of a tendency to drink in halls, for example, than if you come from homes. And because the culture in halls invariably does revolve around alcohol, for most groups, there are certain ethnic groups where it isn't the case. And in a sense, that's also an issue, really, because for some ethnic groups, it's much harder for them to become accepted because there is it's not a requirement, but an expectation that people will drink. And I think that's sort of shared by UK society anyway, and universities are no different. What we're generally looking at is a culture where drinking can get very heavy without people becoming aware of how heavy it's becoming. So, for example, if you go out onto the quad out there in the summer, you will often see quite a lot of drinking going around, empty beer cans, bottles of vodka, that sort of thing. Now, in itself, there's nothing majorly wrong with that, so long as it's just an afternoon and people stop. But if that is part of a regular culture, then clearly it's going to impact on their health, the way they perform. All those types of issues are likely to happen. So drinking is there, and the other, again, that is something that tends to be linked to halls, but it's not exclusive by any means. So it's about, yeah, you can have the odd day when you drink heavily and then you can recover from it. It's when you're doing it day after day after day after day after day, which can happen. I can tell you from my personal experience and from experience of family members that everything revolves around booze. It's as simple and straightforward as that. Virtually all the activities, the clubs will revolve around booze. Most of the activities will start around the Students' Union. And so what you're talking about really is a week of incredibly excessive drinking. Most people come through it unscathed. Let's not be too such a panic sort of mess. But it is, it's something that is it's a rite of passage, if you like. But it has its dangers. There's no question about that. But you have to be able to put a brake on it. And I would say that's the thing I would say overall, is I think people have to learn to be able to put a brake on it. Because if you don't put a brake on it, it will impact on your studies and your ability to perform. It's as simple and straightforward as that, really. I think one of the things, the universities have to become more aware of it. And I do seriously think the universities have to take a step back and say, just how much of this are we actually colluding with? Because, as I've said before, virtually if you go to the Freshers' Week, virtually everything revolves around alcohol. So I think they do have to take some, not blame exactly, but you have to sort of step back and say, what message are we giving? Having said that, we are dealing with people who are adults and who make adult decisions. I think the key actually is for us to be aware of it. I don't think it's about hammering people with messages or whatever, but I'm certainly hoping very soon to be able to do a student survey to find out much more about, working with some colleagues from somewhere in the southwest, to find out actually what is going on, particularly issues around what we call preloading and what we call and drinking games. Because we know preloading is where you actually go, where you drink and then you go out. And we know it's associated with much, much more drinking than if you don't do that. So the tendency is to drink much heavier. And again, this is something that is particularly, you're more likely to see around things like halls of residence. Again, not exclusively, but that is what you're more likely to see. Also, again, around halls of residence, but again, not exclusively, are drinking games. Now, this is where these are dangerous. You know, every year, not necessarily here, but students, there will be a student, more than one probably, who will kill themselves just through alcohol poisoning. And it's just how it happens. They're not necessarily dependent. They're not necessarily in trouble. They're not necessarily depressed. Whether they just go on for one day and they drink too much and their brain shuts down. It happens, and it is. I wouldn't say it's that rare. It happens every year somewhere. So I think it is important because I don't think very many people actually realise that alcohol is a poison, and if you drink enough of it, it'll shut your brain down, shut your heart down, and you will die. It's as simple and straightforward as that. But you have to equip students with that message, and I think I'm not sure that we do that particularly well. But having said that, as I say, they're adults, and it's about them negotiating the adult world. And I drink myself. I'm not going to put up an abstinence message because I don't think it's a very healthy message to put up either. I think it's important that part of the process of being at university is you learn to handle alcohol in a sensible way, because in many situations as an adult, that's exactly what you also have to do. So I don't think we should divorce ourselves from adult expectations.